Hello, everybody. Oh, wow, this is such a beautiful sight to have you all on screen. Hello, world. Hello, my dear friends, Mary, Alex, Matt, Andrea, Alex Rivest. We have two Alexes today. We are still missing Eva. I don't know. Oh, she might come in right now. I don't know. Well, thank you very much for being here. This is really a huge privilege. Thank you to the GatherVerse community to have me and have you all, because the reason why I would all want you to on screen with me here and actually talk has a deep reason, a personal reason, because I have felt quite lost in the last few years, I must say. And the conclusion here is that I found huge comforting and unbiased information through all of you. I consider it to be my task, a part of my self-advocacy, to report from the experiences with you and to share as unbiased as possible your work and venerate it, taking into an account the big picture, the long-term effects, and harmonizing and balancing without fear what we have available. I loved Emily Wright's statement just a few minutes ago that we have to fix ourselves first. And it's the perfect basis now to actually feed a bit more into that endeavor, because each and every one of you has been doing necessary work and is actually connecting to the self in very specific ways, be it through filmmaking or hypnosis or VR experiences or finances or in Matt's expertise. In Alex's expertise in the filmmaking, Andrea with indigenous cultures. So I would very much like you to introduce yourselves from a point of view, what you have been doing in order to explore a bit more the self and actually get to a degree of consciousness where we have unbiased information around climate change or climate as such, how we can fix our own climate first and become conscious of what's necessary to change in ourselves, maybe, and then take action. Maybe let's start with you, Mary. You're muted still.
Well, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this GatherVerse. Jen sort of surprised me at the last second, but I'm going to do my best here. So I am a hypnotherapist, but I also worked in journalism for over 25 years. I produced children's programs for PBS, and I produced and directed as well in the Caribbean and around the world, Ireland, etc. And I found that I felt like I was just making commercials, and I was influencing especially children to buy a product or be a certain kind of person, as much as innocence as I had created these things for. So I actually naturally fell into hypnotherapy because that's exactly what journalists do. They hypnotize. So we've been doing it since the beginning of time, and we've been using since the beginning of time music and sound and bells and whistles, as they say, to get people to do what we want. And I feel that now is the time that we have to realize we have to use our critical thinking skills to understand that we have been manipulated. And there is some good manipulation towards sustainability and the environment, because we are in a dire situation with the extinction of animals and biodiversity disappearing. But fear has been the main driving force to create order, as it were. And I think that's not necessary. I think that in actual fact, that amygdala that we're all being manipulated with, our kind of fear, fight, flight, our emotional center, can be captured with love. And that we can do the same sort of messages towards the environment and sustainability through our communities just by giving the emotions of love and positive connections to nature and positive connections to each other. And I think that's what's lacking, especially in the West. In today's world, we are so busy and so overstimulated, we have forgotten our emotions and our intuition. So that's where I come in, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. And I think it's a good moment to get to your endeavors, Andrea, because you're a fearless advocate for indigenous knowledge and native knowledge. And I would very much like to understand a bit more, or tell the people observing and watching what you're about.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Jens. It's super nice to be surrounded by all the people you care about too. So my name is Andrea. I'm from Peru. I'm the founder of Nodo DAO. Nodo DAO basically is a bridge of bridges. So at Chacana, Chacaruna, at the Andean Cosmovision. But basically the idea is to bring diverse communities together. So change makers, creators, indigenous communities in the same space, people that believe that indigenous knowledge needs to be in the forefront of social and environmental impact and innovation in general. I think that the people that should be really speaking in these panels should be, you know, Marisol or Natalie from these communities, like people that like really have been carrying this knowledge for generations are the ones that we need to be learning from and adapting maybe frameworks and systems from. What we do in NOLO basically is gather the people together just as a think tank lab and have a space for each one of the voices to be heard and to provide solutions for those topics. And the idea, or like the main purpose of it, is to create autonomy in local cooperatives. So through basically culturally and financially and legally also, through the use of blockchain, initially in supply chain management processes to certify fair trade processes with indigenous communities. So a little bit about me with your question. I mean, yeah, I think one of the main things is nature, you know, how we understand the concept of nature and how we've like been explain nature in like the educational system or things like that. Basically, I think there's a separation of human and nature in many of the perceptions of what we believe of nature to be. But indigenous communities and just indigenous knowledge in general takes into account fractal concepts and cyclical concepts that basically mean that we are interconnected in different scales with each other, with nature, with everything, because we are nature also. So yeah, like environmental impact, I think, comes initially, and this is something I said before also, one of the roots is the ways that we're interacting with each other socially, right? Like, yes, nature will regenerate itself, like it has always. And how are we surviving here, if it's too late or not? Like, how are we really going to stay here as humanity? How are we making the spaces for diverse voices to be heard, and for us to start integrating these into the framework or the textile of these things that are seemingly opposite? How can we start gathering them together, right? So yeah, definitely I agree with Mary. I think that one of the most important things is, you know, having your own compass also, like following it through your own direct connection with whatever that means to you, you know, and also having that just as much as having the co-creation and the interconnectedness. So like being able to formulate your own opinion and also being able to use that opinion to co-create some type of new reality with others, right?
Lovely, Andrea. Thank you very much for showing also the fractal aspects of our reality, because that's a very important point of, well, let's start beginning where you can actually understand reality in other ways than it is presenting itself very commonly. I think the next step would be that you, Alex Rivest, would explain us a bit what experiences you made in the field with nature, because you're a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah, thank you again. It's wonderful to be part of this this gathering and to be able to talk to all of you. I feel privileged to be here. Just so, my name is Alex Rivest, and I used to be a scientist. I did a PhD in neuroscience at MIT, trying to understand memory and how the brain works. I did a postdoc there, and then I realized that I felt like I could make a bigger impact telling the story of scientists. And my first story that I've told is through this film called Canary, which is now did its theatrical run in September and is now available, where you rent movies or buy movies. It's a climate film, and it's a climate film told through the very personal lens of a climate scientist who's been kind of studying the glaciers since the mid 70s. And I want to. It's a film that I think speaks to the heart more than the head, and in a way that I think can cause some self-analysis, but also inspire people to find the kind of their things that seem impossible are really truly possible, and it is a matter about having a common goal and caring about the future. And just right here on this panel, this is a group that obviously has that goal. That is our start. And I want to tell one important thing that changed me on this journey, and this speaks to the importance of storytelling. So the glacier that started this gentleman's career is in Peru. It's a glacier called Calcaya, and it's about a 6-hour drive from Cusco, and then a journey up dirt roads for quite a ways, and then you have to hike. So I have always understood climate change. Since Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, I've understood exactly how much sea levels will rise if Greenland melts, if Antarctica melts, yada yada yada. I've done all the math. I kind of knew it intuitively, and I always thought that by voting for someone who said they believe in climate change was enough, and that was kind of did my thing, and I moved on. When I went to film this movie, we started in Cusco. Cusco is a population of 500,000 people who get power from hydroelectric power, which is runoff from the glacier. On our journey up to the glacier, we started taking this meandering path, and we could see the agricultural lands, the llamas, alpacas that sustained the economic vibrancy of 2 million people. We then get up to this glacier and see this massive ice cap, largest tropical glacier on the planet. And I asked the scientists we were with, when, based on your calculations and what you've been observing for the last 50 years, when will this glacier be gone? And he turned to me and said, by the time your daughter is your age, it's gone. And I had just seen the kind of interconnectivity of what this one source of water brings to millions of people, and trying to comprehend the chaos that reigns for those people is something I don't know how to picture, right? I don't know what the world that my daughter is going to inherit, and she doesn't even live in these areas, right? I realized at that point that I can't just vote the right way. I need to find allies. I need to fight for climate change in every way possible, speak wherever I can about my experiences, what changed me, and try to help find solutions. The film is about making the impossible possible. It's a guy who was told you can't drill ice cores from 19,000 foot mountains, and he did it and brought back this information we really need by collaborating with people from all over the world. And that's kind of the message of what we need to do to tackle climate change now. Also, as part of filming, there's a scene in the film which we sit down and just listen to people who live right at the base of the glacier, and just listen. How is your world changing, and what frustrates you, and where do you see hope? And so there's a scene in the film that I think will resonate in terms of just bringing voice to people who don't have voice. So I'm excited to be part of this conversation and to talk more about the film and come up with solutions that we can all move forward with. Thank you. Thanks, Jens, for inviting me too. I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
It's very important that you're here, Alex, like everybody. And what you mentioned around this feeling of having to do something, the thrive to actually connect with nature in order to have enough data and change something, leads me over to Matt, because Matt has been dipping into virtual realms with his work, and it's absolutely marvelous. If you haven't experienced it so far, I think you can get in touch with Matt in order to experience it somehow or see video feeds of it. Matt, would you please enlighten us a bit what you have been doing on an interactive virtual realm, because that's an area which I'm hugely interested in because of simulation, because we can test things out.
Right. Yes, yes, absolutely, Jens. And first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to see you again. And it's also great to see this panel and be a part of such a great collection of people who are effective doers. I wanted to touch on, Jens, your comment about internal climate. And I thought that was very poignant, because a lot of the turmoil that I'm seeing in the world, certainly there are external forces, but a lot of that is derived from internal climate. And that's where I feel that the work that I'm able to do with virtual reality allows me to take imagination, take things that might be out of this world, and put them into the hands or into the perspective of other people, and then give them the chance to be in that kind of imagination. And it gives us a chance to have new perspectives, or be isolated from maybe the things that are outside immediately that are distracting us. So that really is what drew me to VR. Just a little bit more background about myself. So I have a decades-long professional career in technical program management, quite different from the creative side of things, but I help organizations navigate the complexity of change. And that's really influenced my efforts to create virtual reality. So I'm also the founder of Dizzy Magnolia, a small VR creative studio. And our focus is really creating awe and wonder that inspires people. We're hoping that with our work, people put on technology, but they put it on so that they can take it off and see the world in a new light. And our recent experience that we created was inspired by the last birthday wish of a dear young girl who was struggling with leukemia. And she had, knowing her last wish, then the inspiration that gave us made us reflect in our team the fact that there are so many small voices that haven't been heard, and that have such wonderful energy, that if only the story was shared, if only the access to it was given. And we've taken the creativity that we have, the love of immersion as far as immersive storytelling, and wanted to have her spirit live on through the work. So our work is called Pulsar, and it's in essence taking her, what would seem to be a fantastical wish to explore space in ways that physics would not allow. We're able to create this beautiful experience that is accessible to folks that maybe are in a situation where they're in a wheelchair, or they're in a constricted environment, but they can still experience the awe and wonder of what has been created, looking at the universe from a new perspective, and then also experiencing someone else's mind of creativity. And for me, that's really one of the keys, is being able to understand that the simple things of life are the things that really are the essence of who we are. There's a lot of noise, and so the creativity that we put into virtual reality, even though we can have a lot of noise, we're also trying to make it a place where reflection can occur. So you do get that sense of awe and wonder that in essence gives life this moment of purpose in the fantastical, in hopes that when folks take off that technology, they're just thinking about the world around them with more kindness. Yeah, and Alex, what you say of bringing voice to people that don't have a voice, that's exactly where we see the opportunity here, and why we've chosen that inspiration.
Lovely. That you mentioned kindness is so crucial, and I think it's a currency. And with that, I would come to our last person to present himself, Alex. Last but not least, at all, because Alex, you have been relentlessly advocating for decentralization of economy and finances in order to build a at least parallel economy that is having us all thrive. And I was the lucky receiver of your support at some point. I thank you deeply for. You have been igniting something with your generosity, and that has been built through decentralized finance to a certain degree. It's not just that, it was just your generosity in general that I estimate. And could you explain us a bit what you're doing and how you're doing it, and how you eventually see all this coming together?
Sure, absolutely. Just a quick sound check. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, Jens, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this wonderful GatherVerse and gathering. I'm really humbled and glad to be able to hear everybody's stories on the panel. First, I'm just inspired by what everybody has done and is doing. So super stoked to be here. So yeah, I'll kind of work backwards from where I am in my journey right now, from a career and a personal perspective. So about 2 years ago, I embarked on my first endeavor as an operator of a publicly listed company. So I've been an entrepreneur and an investor my entire career, but this is the first time that I really ventured into the world of public capital markets and broader global finance, and it really was an exercise of trial by fire. And there's an irony behind it too, because as Jens, you were talking about, my passion over the past several years has really been in decentralized finance and blockchain and crypto. And I think it's kind of interesting that the company that I brought public, I'm wearing their hat right now, is called Ethereum. It's spelled in a little bit of a different way than the crypto that people might be familiar with of Ethereum, but that's not by coincidence. So, when I set off very early on in my career to hopefully participate or be part of the revolution that is creating access to the financial world and opportunities, whether it be from traditional, everyday banking that everybody needs on a regular day basis, and doing trade, or consuming, to the entrepreneur that's looking for access to capital to build upon their visions. I guess I've taken a little bit of a guerrilla warfare approach to it. So while I'm a self-proclaimed DeFi degen on one hand, my day-to-day is very much in the staunch traditional and conservative world of capital markets and Wall Street and finance. So I realized, after my misspent youth and angst towards capitalism and businesses, that we can't tear the whole thing down and burn it to the ground. We have to affect change within the institutions that are status quo and that we're beholden to. And realizing that we can make changes if we all put our best foot forward, and we do whatever bit that we can. So I think thematically, with regards to this conversation and climate, I guess the world that I kind of deal with more day to day now is the climate of corporate cultures. So Ethereum Acquisition Corp is a SPAC, or a special purpose acquisition company. So essentially, we're a financial vehicle that uses the public markets and capital to then invest in and acquire a private company, and then bring that company public through our vehicle. So throughout that process, what we have to do is an extremely rigorous compliance and regulatory due diligence on the companies that we deal with. And one of the aspects of our due diligence and requirements all the way up through the SEC and other regulatory bodies are our ESG initiatives. And what I found to be a little bit, I would say, disheartening is that it's really just a catchphrase. To be honest and straightforward in our, backdoor dealings and our boardroom meetings, we talk about ESG for probably a total of about 10 minutes. Do you have an ESG program? What is it? Okay, if you don't have one, let's get that thing going, right? The positive to that, though, is I would say by and large, the founders and CEOs and C-suite executives that I talk to, when the topic is brought up, it's something that people think about. It is on people's minds, but the culture and the climate of actually inculcating and injecting actionable strategies is just not the business of the day. So, my hope is that through more awareness and education, as well as a lot of the advances and innovations in decentralized finance, in decentralized autonomous organizations, and new ways of governance, will allow broader voices of the constituencies that corporations and businesses basically serve to have a voice in these areas of climate change, of human rights, of social norms and social issues, and to leverage decentralization, blockchain technology to be a funnel of change and voices all the way up to the board level, so that it's not just a bunch of, it's not a C-suite guessing at what's important to their constituencies and to their consumers. So that's just a little bit about what I'm doing now. It's kind of come full circle for me. I actually was originally trained as a cultural anthropologist in college. Luckily now my parents are like, oh, wow, there seems to be some relevancy to that degree. So I wanted to just make quick mention of kind of a book that was very integral in kind of how I'm approaching being a corporate financier. It's called Studying Those Who Study Us, and it's written by an anthropologist named Diane Forsyth. And interestingly, she was the daughter of the founder of Stanford's computer science program. So she grew up in these labs where there were, a very typical cadre of academicians working on AI and programming. And when she came to do her studies, she was like, you know what, there's probably some biases that are going into these programs that we're using on a daily basis now. We should probably dig into that and look at how those biases are affecting people on such a broad. We have this connectivity via the internet. So it's been a full circle journey, and glad to be here and continue it with you all.
Well, there is the question coming up: how do we actually consider the truth out there? And this is also the question displayed right now. Is it actually too late for us to get active? And since you come from the corporate world, you have a completely different take on everything, and you have to serve a certain world that is, probably not addressing the individual very much, even more profit thinking and getting into, just the numbers have to be right. And Mary, I would like you to ask, how do you seek the truth? Do you think actually that it is too late? And how do you relate personally to truth seeking as a hypnotherapist? How do you align this inner compass that you have been talking about? I think that's the root question, because it's a social issue, as we have been seeing throughout this panel talks throughout the morning. So if we address the micro political let's say, world, or the micro politics, or ourselves first, that might help to get the bigger spectrum right?
Well, one of the things I did was, when I traveled, I always generally wrote for children's programs, and one of them was called Hello World Jamaica. And it was an interesting experience because Jamaica has so much potential for ecotourism, and the environment is beautiful, and they have micro environments. So the Blue Mountains in itself grow the most marvelous coffee, and there's so much potential. But what I found is that when I took the kids on a historical get together, show them about, some of them had never been to the beach. Some of them had never been into the city. Some of them had never been into inner cities either, because I mixed the groups from the very wealthy to the kind of very poor kids, to, let them see that everyone is the same. It's just different environments. And I found that a lot of people just didn't take care of their environment. And one of the reasons is poverty. So when you're poor and you're just worried about what you're going to eat next, where you're going to sleep, and if you're safe in your bed, you really don't look at an animal the same way someone who is comfortable in the West, who is like, living in a comfy house and has a pet and has pet clothing. So I found that with storytelling, the point that I'm getting to is that it seemed hopeless. And one of the issues we had was that people were very superstitious of cats, and they were killing them quite regularly, or they were hanging them and doing terrible things. So I did an episode about how wonderful cats were and how they chased away lizards. And within a few weeks, the animal JSPCA were sold out of cats. And it was just through storytelling. It was storytelling about, do you want to have a pet? Why do you want to have a pet? Where would you keep a bird? Where would you keep a cat? And it was relating the children and their parents, because parents tend to watch what the kids watch, whether they want to or not. That's what happens when you have children and they demand the television. So I do think that through storytelling, we can change. I mean, we human beings are so easily manipulated. We're not that far off of animals when it comes to our emotions, and animals use their intuition because that's survival. And like Andrea was saying, it's our roots. If we go back to storytelling, the way the ancients ones did, and the way, listen to our grandparents and our great-grandparents, which is so difficult because that community has fallen apart. There are so many people that are at work and people who want to escape the environment that they came from, that this is what happens. It tears the community apart. But through storytelling, especially like what Matt is doing, where you can put on a VR and show these people in the neighborhoods, look, this is what your neighborhood could look like. If today we decide to put benches up, and tomorrow we have an urban garden, and then the next day, it is quite possible for people to, even people who aren't visual, it is possible to help them see through VR, and through audio, and through all of these different techniques of storytelling that you guys are all doing. And then also with the crypto, what Alex is doing, sorry if I'm calling it the wrong thing, crypto, ethereal, sort of showing them the potential of how they can make money in different ways. Because that's another thing. A lot of these countries, the poor people don't trust their governments. They don't want to put money into, and they have their own little trading system. And so there is a way that we can all touch upon communities by simply showing the community how to do things and through storytelling and through positive storytelling. So yeah. I did that with my children's program, and I just sort of had a character that was a Rastafarian, and he was very much he didn't have plastic at his shops, and his family were the community, and it was important for him to protect his environment and talk about hurricanes and what causes a hurricane and how you prepare for one. So I think deep down inside, we're all children. We love stories, so there's no reason why we can't all be affected by good storytelling and with hypnosis, because that's exactly what storytelling is.
Yeah, you get to understand your own inner story, to what you're telling yourself over and over, and once you become aware of it, you can possibly get another approach to it. You kind of swipe away the window of what you have been learning, how you have been programmed, and actually create room. And I wish Eva was on the meeting, and Eva has an incredible approach to that. She actually explains how we are creating our perceptions and how we can become bias-free, and how we can leave behind the feeling of separation, that we are separated from each other. And this gathering is really going into the direction where we can feel more as an organism, you know. And I don't say that easily with ease, but yeah, we are not individuals in the sense of being apart from each other. So the storytelling is probably setting the lanes or the guides in order to get another understanding of life, and have a different approach than what was programmed into us. And probably we are the really first generation that has access to this information. And Alex, I wanted to ask you your approach to storytelling and the truth, why we need it. And I think our language as creatives is storytelling. At least I see it to be a main task of my life, and it overlaps so much into your lives, and that's why I don't feel separation anymore. Well, could you talk a bit to what you hope to achieve with your films?
Well, I welcome the question. You know, there's this really interesting line of educational psychology where if you want to teach people something, facts, and you take a group of kids and you teach them a set of facts. You take another group of people, another group of kids, you teach them facts, but you teach the struggles that scientists went through to get those facts. The people who heard the story of the struggle the scientists went through learn the facts better, are more engaged with the facts, and are more engaged with the process of science in a way that just shows the value of storytelling. You know, I think from the world of, for me, science, I'm going to talk about through the lens of science, because that's where I grew up from. And science is about trying to uncover truth and facts. And you talk about seeking truth. And so to me, there's trying to tell the story. If I want to teach science, I need to teach the personal stories of the humans and what they went through to gather data. And so for me, that's the basis of my approach, is just to say, okay, this is a human journey to uncover truth. It is flawed. It is beautiful. Let's tell that story as honestly as we can and connect people to the passions that individuals went through to get something, the struggles they went through, and let's just have an open story, because at the end of the day, science shows that will help teach the science better. And to me, the more people understand that process, the more we can unveil truth together. There's another element of this. What you said is stories allow us to look at ourselves. And for me, that's been a massive thing I didn't expect for myself. The film Canary is about a guy who starts seeing glaciers melting in the 70s, starts being the expert, sitting down in front of Congress, telling the world, listen to the facts. Here's what I see. Here's the data. Listen to the facts. 10 years later, he's up at 18,000 feet and can't breathe in his tent. Comes out, gets carried down the mountain. His doctor says, you have congestive heart failure. He goes into denial and keeps going up mountains with congestive heart failure. And this element of the world expert saying, listen to the facts, when told things that are inconvenient to himself, doesn't listen, shows us how susceptible we all are to denial. And this has pushed me to really think about my denial, right? I'm telling a story about someone else, but at the end, I'm looking inwards at what are my roadblocks? You know, how can I be the guy saying we need to fix climate change, and then I'll go fly across the country and give another talk about that, right? There's a little bit of insanity and denial in that. And that is something that, you know, my form of denial is presumably worse than people who just don't accept the facts, but stay at home, right? And this is something I think we all need to come to terms with. And storytelling, if you allow it to become intimate and personal, allows for that lens into our own souls that, you know, can cause self-reflection and self-correction. And that's the journey that I'm on, and the journey that through Canary, the film, I want other people to go on too, is really to take a deep look at themselves as part of this organism, right? And hope alone is not going to get us there. We need to all be doing the right thing and doing it together.
I have difficulties in actually giving the word to Alex, Andrea, or Matt. So please help me out, because what you just said, Alex, is the self-advocacy and self-inflection is so. I think it's the beginning of it all, and the denial of it is such a bitter pill to swallow. You know, it's I speak from personal experience here, and to remove the bias and actually to surrender to a certain to a certain point to what's just coming to you, in order not filter it anymore through the different filters we have been building up, or using the filters correctly. That's and what is correct. Does any one of you want to speak to that? Yes, Andrea.
Non-dualism, integrating separation, the concept of separation. I think it's a huge thing we have to start integrating within our own mentalities. We've been taught to have more linear thinking, where it's like the light and the shadow, or you know, what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, and try to show within a panel maybe what we're doing right and how we know and how the facts are, you know, what should be put in the forefront and things like that. And I've noticed that, like, because of that, people tend to isolate when there are things that aren't so happy or pretty or things like that happening within themselves, and kind of go into their own caves. And we used to do all of this in community before. No, it was like in the pre-Incan civilizations, the temples were light and shadow temples. They weren't only light temples or light or shadow temples, basically both of the things architectonically speaking, and just like by the experience that you had within these spaces, valued equally the shadow and the light, which could be translated into many things, right? Into any type of duality. And I think that the moment when we start really being able to share that thing that we would otherwise maybe hide within our own enclosed spaces, within our bodies, within our own houses, within our own, what we communicate, how we communicate it, within community spaces, that's when we can actually start connecting and actually start working and co-creating from different spaces. So besides, no, there's a couple of years, 3 years ago, I started this kind of like circle of talk with women, where we would just kind of share the good and the bad with in different ways. And we did a retreat where I believe most retreats are kind of colonialist, where they like bring in the indigenous community to, you know, do the offering and do the thing, and then they leave, and then there's no real interaction. But we basically had like those 5 days all together, doing the circles, the hikes, the panels, all of the workshops, anything together. And that's when we started seeing each other as human, right? Because I think that there's this there's this concept of kind of the grass is greener on the other side, just because of the linearity of the way that we think as human beings, and how it's like, oh, indigenous communities, you know, like they're living in nature and they, you know, have like a direct connection, and their lives must be so much easier. Or, oh, the people that are in the cities, you know, like they have it all figured out, like financially and stuff like that, maybe. But like being able to interact in that way. And then one thing I wanted to speak about was the importance of the word within storytelling. One of the most sacred medicines in the South in general is the coca leaf, and it's the medicine of the word. It's literally just that. It's like, how are we able to talk from a heart space? How are we able to speak from a space that connects us all, that we can co-create from? One of the like 2 phrases that I want to kind of leave with that are really interesting for me, that like have been really helping me, is that you can only speak what you walk. Like like in some of the Native communities, maybe more in the north, that's what I've heard with some friends. It's like, I won't speak it because I haven't walked it. This person should speak it because that person has walked it. And it's like the word won't come out unless you've walked it. And then the second part, which is very ND and Cosmovision also, is like it is said that one of your ancestors walked the same walk that you're walking now. So when you speak, you should speak with the voice of your ancestors. And that's why storytelling is so important, because before knowledge was transmitted orally. And so it was transmitted by the grandmother of my grandmother, transmitted it to my grandmother, and vice versa, and then it would not cut off, right? And yes, Mary was right. Like, there is an intergenerational gap. There is a separation happening within the communities. Nothing is like, all rainbows and butterflies, right? And I think that that's why it's so important, like being able to speak from the word that we've walked, and being able to speak in a way that connects us all, in a space, in a way that it's like true in anything, in the shadow or the light. Like, I have issues with this, I am struggling with all these things, and putting that on the table and being able to actually start weaving from the things that we're lacking and the things that we can put in is part of the kind of the framework that Nodo is using to interconnect different diverse communities too.
Wow. Lovely how you phrase this, Andrea. And we have, unfortunately, time against us. We have 3 more minutes or 2.5 more minutes. And Alex and Matt, I would really love you to conclude somehow. I don't know whether we even have the time, but just really quickly before we get cut off. That's exactly the reason, Andrea, and all of you, why I think this gathering is happening. So the listeners and visitors of this gathering can actually start to reach out to you, because if they have questions regarding what you're doing, they should do reach out. And that's my feeling, because I feel deeply entrusted with you. And I feel that you're doing marvelous work, and you're working on the heartfelt side of things, and you're balanced within what you're doing. As a conclusion, I would like to ask quickly, do you have a question to someone on the panel you would like to ask and quickly address to each other? Matt, maybe, or Alex? I know it's a surprise.
You start to speak, Alex. So, did you have something?
No, please, Matt.
Well, maybe it's less of a question, more of a summation. What I'm hearing is the core of what makes us human. What can we still do? So, what are the conclusions that we can make about our next actions? For me, it's just resilience, being able to be a resilient human, and that means coming back to what makes us excellent. So we sometimes get so lost in the noise of modern life that nurturing an ability to be okay with silence or be okay in a quiet time. I think that getting to a point where we can teach things and just reinforce them as children grow through the years, pointing them to excellence will help them sustain good decision-making and, in essence, good stewardship over the planet and each other.
Oh, I saw Eva is just logging on. I think there was a confusion for you, Eva, time-wise. But please reach out to Eva too. She has incredible information on perception and how we perceive this world. I'm really deeply sorry this happened, this misunderstanding, but take my word for it. Everybody on this panel has incredible information available, so we can start working on ourselves or continue the work on ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the chat. We've been granted 5 more to Eva. So we have the honor, privilege of being able to hear her speak.
Eva, yes, superb. Thank you, Christopher and GatherVerse team. Lovely. Please go ahead, Eva.
Hi, yeah, it was a misunderstanding because they changed the hour. So I guess you've been an hour talking without me. I'm so sorry about that. Time, humans changing stuff. And yeah, thank you, everyone. I check all of you through LinkedIn, and it's amazing that you are focused your creativity in serving legacy in such amazing manners. And I'm sorry that I missed it. I will watch the video for sure. My point is perception, and I'm a researcher of perception, animal perception and human perception, until the point I end up drawing the structure where ideas are projected, because we humans are the only animals kind of destroying home, destroying Earth, because we don't perceive it as it is, unified. So I create content and integrational tools for humans to remember that everything is unified, because we can see, like in water, that we are made by hair, and we were 3D printed in your mom wombs in water, and then you went out in ether water, because there's water in the air too, and we are made by it, but we call her with different constructs. It's like having small creatures living on top of you, and because they are tiny, when they walk in your nails, they think you're one thing, and when they walk in your eye, they think you're another thing, but you are just one thing. No? Water is just one thing with 4 states, but we humans use constructs to treat her like she's fragmented. And I call she because, you know, everything has a gender now. I don't really understand things with gender, but I understand that she makes things bloom like mothers, and she contains all life forms, because nothing can escape from water. We are all immersed on it. And the use of constructs, it is really easy to identify for a 6-year-old kid that understands that the clouds are the same substance as the rain, and the rivers and the lakes and the oceans. They are all the same thing, and we are immersed in it. But we have other constructs to feel ourselves apart. Like we have names and family names that humans are really struggling with, things that they don't understand, because they use concepts that doesn't describe reality as unified as it is. So we map out and color code it where all thoughts are projected. There is a hardware of holograms where we can see water potentials, because we understand water as consciousness, and the holographic structure of reality printed from your inner being in water. So you allow yourself to explore different dimensions depending on what you believe is possible. So we map out and color coded the structure where ideas are projected, and the 5 hard disks of memory that you use as knowledge when we record as adults ideas and goals and all intentions and all the constructs that we use to perceive. We confuse. And kids doesn't do that, because they don't have so many constructs in their memory, and they have more a state of presence. That presence is the state that allows intelligent behavior, because allows you to perceive more data, more information from where you are immersed, and acting with order with what it is that is unified, and feeling more, because you are present. You can feel how the environment shrinks when you don't desire good, because you project things to disappear, then things implode and you implode with them. And if you are sensitive because you are in present, you don't allow any negative thought or bad intention, because you feel that is not good, because implodes. Your waters, instead of expanding, implodes. So kids are more in there, in present. So they can be more loving, because love is the unified field that makes things bloom. So if you are in love, you are in present. And you can be intelligent because you perceive the data of what is coming and passes through you, so you can feel what is beneficial or blooming for you. And that is what all the animals do. They perceive through resonance, because they are in their inner waters, perceiving the unified field of water happening. So they can read different vibrational fields and subtle realms that we don't perceive, because we are distracted with that structure. And because that's the source of losing inner peace, creating social disorder or wars and environmental disasters, because we don't perceive from present unified, we create content that can make visual references for other creators to create other visual references. So we can normalize a language that identifies the structure where presence is lost, and how that structure is filled by constructs and conditioning memory, and allows humans to harm each other or to harm nature itself. So I'm really sorry that I missed your descriptions, and I will, if you want, I will upload in the document that Jens did to present all of us several videos that showcases different visual references that we've created in different platforms, like virtual reality scenarios or toys that you can play to remember the holographic structure of reality, that everything depends in your vibrational state, and how to hack perception by understanding how the frames of thought work and how your memory, your 5 memory disk condition is present. So you can keep your inner peace and dissolve any social conflict, because you can draw with a simple doodle language that is replicable by kids or by an adult. It doesn't matter what is your culture, your dogma, or whatever. You can draw the structure where thought is projected and how to restore inner peace. And that's my only wish, is that can be spread enough fast for humans that allow kids to thrive with no violence at all, because violence is so normalized that we don't perceive. And a hypersensitive human, or a human that has more brain developed, that perceives more data, that new kids are more like this now. They are much more awakened because Earth is raising the frequency, so the DNA nucleotides are more enlightened and they come more awakened. So we need really to prioritize creativity, to develop sensitivity to the subtle realms and to presence. So by creating visual references and educational tools and integrational tools and toys and games, we can embed that in entertainment or education or policy making or whatever, because it's really obvious that water is not separated, that water is not apart, and we are just confused. And from that perceptual error of separation in water, we can identify the human family completely unified. So we can put creativity in human family blooming inside of a big drop of water that is shared with other life forms, minerals, animals, vegetables, and then your creativity explodes and you start feeling more. So I look forward for the 5th industrial revolution, that for me is going to be resonance as the standard, where all the buildings, the furniture, the clothing, everything will be designed with biogeometry principles and blooming principles, so people can thrive and everything can thrive, because we are sensitive enough to allow life to increase the life force of water, because it's making everything. And that's my shortcut resume. I'm sorry that it was really fast, and yeah. Anyhow, that's a resume.
It couldn't be more beautiful to close this panel with this.
And yeah, ask for it.
Thank you very much, Eva. I'm in the unfortunate position to close the panel, but I think your words are rounding everything up into a sphere, and giving us maybe the tools, or just for a second, the right thoughts and the brain-heart connection to actually thrive and possibly lay out reality in a way so it's resonating with everybody, and having a unified field and perception of a unified field. I thank you so much. Please reach out to each other, because there are so many interconnections I can imagine. Matt with Eva, Andrea with Alex, Mary with Alex Lee, and it's just I would very much like to see you, for a starter, to interconnect, and the audience also connect to all of you, please.
Thank you, Jens.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jens. Thank you, GatherVerse.
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to meet everybody. Have a wonderful Halloween.
Happy birthday.